You are afraid of the dark because you are weak. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, darkness could kill your ancestors. Before electricity or lighters existed, once the sun went down, the world could turn into hell. So how did humans steal the power of fire? That question sounds like something from a distant past, but it actually begins right inside your room. Today, you only need to press a button to get light, turn on a stove to get fire, open a refrigerator to get food. Everything is so easy that you forget fire was once the line between life and death. A few hours without electricity is enough to make you uncomfortable, yet your ancestors lived in true darkness, a world with no streetlights, no locked doors, and no one coming to rescue them. And to understand why fire was once that important, you have to leave your brightly lit room behind. Imagine every switch disappearing, every electrical outlet falling silent, every machine coming to a stop. Now, turn the clock back about 300,000 years. You are no longer lying in a bed. There is no warm blanket, no phone to light your way. In front of you is only cold ground, the damp smell of plants, the wind moving through stone, and strange sounds shifting somewhere in the darkness. For them, when the sun went down, the world did not simply become darker. It became more dangerous. Our ancestors had no locked doors, no concrete walls, no hospitals, and no one to call for help. They had to rely on their eyes, their ears, their instincts, and each other. Then, in the middle of that frightening world, they saw something both beautiful and terrifying. A lightning strike setting dry wood on fire, a forest fire smoldering after a storm, a patch of glowing land after a volcanic eruption. Science suggests that before humans learned to create fire themselves, they may have learned to take fire from nature and keep it alive for as long as possible. In other words, at first, they did not invent fire. They found it, feared it, and then, little by little, learned how to approach the very thing that every other animal stayed away from. And here's a hard truth to swallow. At first, ancient humans may not have invented fire in the way you imagine. They did not sit down, pick up 2 stones, and suddenly create a flame like in a movie scene. Before they knew how to make it, they may have simply been daring enough to reclaim fire from nature. A lightning strike hit a dry tree. A wildfire spread across the grasslands. A piece of wood continued smoldering after a storm. And while other animals ran away from that blazing light, our ancestors had to do the opposite, move closer to it. They knew fire was dangerous. They could feel the heat on their skin, hear branches crackling, see smoke stinging their eyes and making it hard to breathe. But they also noticed something strange. Where there was fire, wild animals were more cautious. Where there was fire, the night became less frightening. Where there was fire, the cold no longer swallowed their bodies as quickly as before. So they had to learn how to keep embers from going out, carry them back to their shelter, protect them from rain, and add dry branches at the right moment so that the fire would continue to live. This was not just about creating a tool. This was the moment humans began to tame a monster. Because fire could warm them, but it could also burn them to death. Fire could cook their food, but it could also destroy their shelter. Ancient humans did not simply learn how to use fire. They learned how to live beside something that could save them and kill them at the same time. And what is frightening is that this is not just imagination. Science has found evidence suggesting that, from a very early period, our ancestors did not merely see fire, they began to control it. At ancient sites, archaeologists have discovered burned charcoal, animal bones exposed to heat, stones altered by fire, and areas that resemble primitive hearths. Those traces do not speak in words, but they leave behind a very clear message. At some point, humans stopped running from fire and began keeping it beside them. And when they achieved that, everything changed. Raw meat became softer. Cooked food became easier to chew and easier to digest, allowing the body to extract more energy from the same piece of food. The cold of the night was no longer a death sentence. Darkness no longer completely swallowed them. Predators, stronger, faster, and more dangerous than humans, began to hesitate in the presence of firelight. Imagine a small group of people sitting around a circle of light in the middle of the night. Outside are the sounds of wind, animals, and the forest. Inside are warmth, food, each other's faces, and the first feeling of safety. A small fire did not make them the strongest creatures physically, but it made them creatures capable of cooperation, capable of protecting one another, capable of extending the night with light. And from that moment on, humans did not merely survive in the darkness, they began to dominate it. And that is why, even today, light still makes you feel safe, even though you live in a room with walls, doors, locks, and electricity. When the power goes out, you feel uncomfortable. When you step into a place that is completely dark, your body automatically tenses up. When a room remains silent for too long, you begin to feel uneasy without fully understanding why. You are not weak, you are not cowardly, and you are not simply too modern. It may be that a very ancient part of your body is reacting, because for hundreds of thousands of years, darkness was not just the absence of light. Darkness was where predators, cold, getting lost, hunger, and death existed. And firelight did not merely help people see one another. It signaled to the body that, tonight, there is a chance of surviving a little longer. The warmth around the fire did not just warm the skin, it soothed fear deep in the bones. So when you turn on a light to sleep more comfortably, when you feel reassured by a light in the hallway, when you cannot tolerate the feeling of cold, darkness, and isolation, perhaps there is nothing wrong with you at all. Your body may simply be remembering a very ancient lesson. Light means safety. Fire was not a convenience. Fire was once life itself. And yet, the strange thing is that the very thing that once helped humans survive the darkness has now been replaced by a different kind of light. Long ago, people sat around a fire because they needed one another to survive. One person watched for predators. One kept the embers alive. One shared a piece of freshly cooked meat. One retold the story of the day's hunt. The firelight did not just illuminate their faces, it pulled the entire tribe closer together. Today, we also sit in front of light, but not to connect. You lie in bed, staring at a screen, your hand endlessly scrolling. Your body is already tired, yet your mind keeps being pulled along by notifications, short videos, messages, and things you do not truly need. Long ago, fire signaled. There are people here, there is warmth, there is food, there is protection. Now, blue light signals. Stay awake longer, watch more, do more, consume more. Our ancestors used fire to bring the night closer to humanity. We use screens to pull ourselves further away from sleep, further away from our bodies, further away from the people sitting right beside us. Long ago, a small circle of fire could make an entire group sit quietly together and feel safe. Today, a house filled with electricity, air conditioning, modern appliances, Wi-Fi, and food in the refrigerator can still contain people who are sleepless, stressed, and lonely. Perhaps the problem is not that we lack light. We are living in the brightest age in human history. Streets are bright, rooms are bright, screens are bright, advertisements are bright, cities glow throughout the night. Yet the more things that shine, the harder it becomes to find the thing that truly keeps us warm. Because the light of fire once brought people together. But modern light, many times, only causes each person to quietly disappear into a world of their own. And perhaps that is why, sometimes, you look at modern life and feel exhausted, even though nothing is truly missing around you. You do not really want to return to prehistoric times. You do not want hunger, disease, wild animals, freezing nights, or death waiting behind every small mistake. No one truly wants to trade medicine, shelter, electricity, clean water, and safety for a return to such a harsh world. But deep inside, perhaps you still miss something that the modern world has taken away. A night without phone notifications pulling you awake. A meal that is not interrupted by a screen. A group of people sitting close together, with no one pretending to be busy, no one listening while looking somewhere else. A real fire, a real story, a real sense of belonging. Perhaps you do not want to throw away modern life. You just want it to be a little quieter, a little less demanding, a little less determined to keep you running all the time, a little less capable of making you feel lonely among so many artificial connections. Perhaps you do not need to go back to a cave. You simply want peace, to sleep like a human being, to eat like a human being, to sit beside someone and feel that you are not fighting the entire world alone. And perhaps that is what makes the story of fire so haunting, even today. Fire was the thing that helped our ancestors escape the darkness. It did not simply make the night brighter. It gave humans, for the first time, the feeling that they could push back against nature itself. They gathered around the fire to find warmth, to find safety, to find each other's faces in a world filled with danger. Today, you may be living in the brightest age in human history. The lights are on in your room. The screen glows in your hand. Cities remain illuminated throughout the night. Yet strangely, the more light surrounds us, the more many people seem to feel darkness within. Our ancestors feared the darkness because predators live there. Sometimes we fear silence because that is where we find ourselves. So the question is not only, how did ancient humans create fire? The bigger question is, after illuminating caves, streets, homes, screens, and even the night sky with entire cities, why do we still feel cold? Perhaps humans were never meant to need only light. We need warmth. And sometimes, what modern life takes away from you is not fire itself, but the feeling of sitting beside someone and knowing that you belong here.